everything is sexist, everything is racist, and everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out. Anita Sarkeesian. Are you familiar with a certain quote from Syndrome from the movie The Incredibles? When everyone is super, no one will be. Well, the same principle applies to the quote given by Anita Sarkeesian at the start of this video. Keep in mind, racism, sexism, and homophobia as it exists in today's world is largely dependent on perspective rather than actual reality. Basically, just think of it as a very whiny, fussy kid who wants to be the center of attention, and this is the only way they know on how to be, quote-unquote, special. For example, here is a good one for you. Ski slopes are sexist because, as you progress in difficulty, the slopes get harder and harder to navigate, thereby rewarding male risk-taking and penalizing women who want to play it safe by forcing them to stay on the beginner slopes. And no, this is not something I made up off the top of my head. This is something that was actually given its own article. Now, personally, ski slopes are not sexist. They are racist. Think about it for a moment. What color of the people are on the ski slopes? White, just like the snow. Which also brings up another point I would like to make. Since the ski slopes are comprised mostly of snow, that also means that snow, therefore, must also be racist. And if you don't believe me, then please realize that I have yet to see a black snowman. And to drive the point home even further, we have the racist Christmas song, I Am Dreaming of a White Christmas. And since Santa Claus is white, again, it's made apparent that Christmas has nothing to do with black people, but instead with those damn evil racist white people. Now, of course, I just made all that up. I don't believe any of it, but then again, I can actually go ahead and make the argument that your standard drinking glass that you may pull out of the cabinet is inherently sexist against women. For example, every glass that I have seen has an opening of some sort, thereby implying a female vagina. Also, into said glass can be poured various liquids, which is an obvious analogy for male sperm, and when we consider that beer can be poured into said glasses, then obviously this here has to do with getting a girl drunk and then raping her whether she likes it or not. Also, much like the woman in question, the glass was not consulted about its use as said receptacle for whatever fluid is going to be poured into it, thereby submitting its status as an object to be used and abused for the benefit and pleasure of men. Sure, you may laugh at what I just said as strawmanning of a feminist argument, and yet no matter how you look at it, if I were to go and actually post this under a female pseudonym, I can actually see this getting published in the Washington Post, or at the very least on Jezebel, who at one point actually published an article bragging about how they went and beat up their boyfriend/husband, and how they just stood there and took it because if they actually acted in a way to defend themselves or retaliate in any way, then they would have not only been arrested, but also sent to jail on battery charges. Naturally, of course, this does not count as sexism because you cannot be sexist towards men, just as you cannot be racist towards whites. And no, that is not a double standard because the privileged do not get to go and determine what constitutes as abuse. The only reason that you care is because you're an oppressive piece of shit who needs to die for the betterment of womankind. Seriously though, if you actually knew what the definition of the word sexism was, you would notice that it simply means realizing that they are male and female qualities and characteristics, something that feminism seems to do quite a lot of. Whenever there is a difference and we do not get a exactly 50/50 ratio, then yes, it is sexist, which means that men and women simply gravitate to different areas and walks of life, which is okay, because it essentially means that these people are doing what interests them and what makes them happy and provides them with what they need. If they really were equal in ratio, then that means that somebody is essentially forced to do a job or activity that they really have no interest in doing. Unfortunately, however, much like the swastika, the original meaning and significance of it has been changed and altered by those who have seriously misused and abused it. Now all it really means is that there is a difference between this group and that group, and that is bad. No, it is not bad. If a man or woman wishes to do A, B, and C, then what business is it of anyone else's to go and make them do otherwise? Yes, they are not a lot of women in the STEM field, but then again, they are not a lot of male secretaries, nurses, ballerinas, or Playboy bunnies either. And yes, this is all okay because the majority of said groups of people have no interest in being in said field, so it really doesn't matter. Yes, things are going to be different. Yet people's interests are going to be wide and vary, and yes, it is not always going to go and be a perfect 50/50 ratio. But you know what? That's called life! If you end up with an imbalance or a deficit of any group of people, that may not be the system failing due to bias, but rather the fact that the only people who are getting said jobs are those who, A, actually are qualified to do the work that is required of them, and B, actually have an interest in doing the said job. This, of course, is saying nothing of people who insist on being offended over something, even if they have to try and make something up in order to do it. Example. The fact that Cortana and Siri have a female voice is clearly a sign of sexism because this way gross nerds can actually go and feel like they are touching and manipulating a helpless woman who has to go and do everything they say. Yes, you can go and say this is sexist all you want, and that this is intimidating and keeping women out of the field of tech and every other gender studies crap that you have been indoctrinated with in your Marxist/feminist class. I can go and present you a bowl of soup and a piece of bread, and I assure you, with a little bit of imagination, you can cook up something to justify why you are oh so horrified and triggered and need to go and see a psychiatrist in order to treat your recent case of PTSD. If you want to be offended, you will be offended, even if there is nothing to be offended by. And the fact that you are always in this state of mind is not the fault of a terrible, horrible society who wishes to inflict suffering on those who are different than them, but rather it is your own failings and shortcomings that you yourself must answer an account for. No one owes you anything! And since I started this video with a quote, I am going to end it with a quote. It's now very common to hear people say, "I'm rather offended by that," as if it gives them certain rights. It's actually nothing more than a whine. I find that offensive. It has no meaning. It has no purpose. It has no reason to be respected as a phrase. I am offended by that. Well, so fucking what? Stephen Fry.